What's up guys, Coach Az here. I got asked a question the other day and it got me thinking. If you could only use one kick, what would it be? So if you could only train one kick, if you could only use one technique in a fight, which one would you choose to work on and practice? Now my initial thoughts with this was I'd pick my favorite technique, which for me is the side kick. I just really enjoy throwing it. I like the variations. I like how much power I can get off of that lead leg. And I'm really enjoying seeing how much the side kick is now being used in sports such as MMA. But if I'm coming at it from a practicality point of view, my answer would have to be the roundhouse kick. In terms of its pure utility and the huge variation of ways that you can throw this shot, I think it's the most effective and useful strike that you can learn, whether it be karate, taekwondo, MMA, kickboxing, or even Muay Thai. So let's break down all the different ways that you can use this kick and what makes it such an effective weapon. Starting with levels and targets. With a roundhouse kick, you can attack the calf, the thigh, the body, the head. You can even kick onto the arms and hit onto the guard and still do damage to your opponent. You can use your lead leg to attack one side, or you can use your back leg to attack the other. This wide variety of targets and approaches means it can be very difficult to predict where this kick is coming from. Beyond that, it also means you have so many options for how to set it up off of combinations, whether it be with the kick being at the start or at the end. If you take a hook kick as an example, a hook kick can be an effective technique when thrown to the head. However, when thrown to the body or the legs, this kick becomes almost redundant. And again, I'm not attacking the hook kick here, I'm just saying in terms of pure utility and the variety of what you can do with a kick, the roundhouse kick is the king. And the extensiveness of its usability continues when we talk about how you're going to use the kick. What are your intentions when throwing it? You can treat the roundhouse kick almost like a jabbing technique, throwing it with your lead leg with speed and precision and landing with your foot onto the target. Now here, obviously you're going to sacrifice some power in the technique, but this is a really effective weapon for getting to the target fast. I could cite many examples where people have been knocked out by a technique like this simply because they didn't see the attack coming. Beyond its ability to still do damage to someone, it's a really effective way of managing range and maintaining a long distance fight with your opponent. Alternatively, you can use your back leg and you can swing with your shin bone with reckless abandon and do untold amounts of damage. I've recently been enjoying some old fight footage of Liam Harrison. If you don't know him, he's a UK Muay Thai fighter and he throws kicks like he's trying to cut people in half. Even when his opponents block his roundhouse kicks, you can see the wince of pain in their eyes and you can see how much it affects them and breaks them down during the fight. In this instance, we're treating the leg more like a battering ram. We're not too concerned with exactly where this kick lands. Instead, we're throwing it with maximum force with the intention of doing maximum damage. The roundhouse kick also gives you access to many angles of attack. By this I mean the arc at which the technique approaches your opponent. So for instance, we can throw this kick in an upward trajectory. This is a great way to bring your kick up your opponent's blind spot and score that head kick. Or shoot a really fast low leg kick onto your opponent with very little tell. This kick breaks some of the rules with the roundhouse in terms of there's very little hip rotation, but it's that lack of hip rotation that gives it the speed and the lack of the ability for your opponent to read your attack as it comes. Just be careful when using this variation and throwing to the body, as you might walk onto the bottom of someone's elbow. Of course, there's the classic angle of attack for the roundhouse kick, which is straight across through the middle. This is probably the most effective way of throwing this kick in terms of trying to land to the body or to the outer thigh. We're utilizing a ton of hip rotation and that generates a lot of torque, which equals a lot of rotational force into the technique. This is of course also a great way to get around those pesky elbows. Finally, we can bring that kick in a downward cutting motion. One of my favorite ways to throw a leg kick. Ernesto Hoost was one of the kings of kickboxing in K1 and he was famous for throwing off of the lead hook this downward chopping leg kick down into the thigh. You'll often see flexible fighters also using this angle when throwing a question mark kick up to the head, bringing that chamber straight up through the middle and then coming all the way up and chopping down with that roundhouse kick across the jaw or the neckline. One of the biggest points of debate for the roundhouse kick is whether or not you should be hitting with your foot or your shin. But rather than be a point of contention, I think this is something that should be celebrated because again, it just speaks to the versatility of this strike. If we're hitting with the foot, we're maximizing our range from our opponent. Yes, we're sacrificing some of the power we can put behind the shot because our foot is far more delicate, but we turn into a precision striker. Alternatively, the shin bone is great for blunt force trauma. It's a hard, big, thick bone that we can ram into our opponent's thighs, rib cage, and even up to their head. I've done a full video discussing the pros and cons of both of these options, so I'll link that down in the description box below. Personally, I believe in a holistic approach to martial arts training. I want to train all of my weapons as best I can and sharpen them to a razor's edge. However, I'm also a big advocate of the Pareto principle or the 80-20 rule, which states that 80% of your results are going to come from 20% of your efforts. So if your training time is limited or you're new to kicking, it makes sense to put a lot of your focus into one technique that has a lot more utility. By working on and training your roundhouse kick, you will develop an effective and versatile weapon to use within your striking. And guys, as always, I hope this video has been helpful. If there's anything you'd like to hear my opinion on, please drop it down in the comments below. If you get a chance, please just hit that like button. It really helps the channel to grow. Subscribe to the channel, new videos coming out every week, and I will see you on the next one.